Can you tell me a little bit about making the move from Animal Kingdom to this? Did Animal Kingdom make this any easier to get off the ground?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I spent, for me, there's my life before Animal Kingdom and my life after it, and they're two totally different things. I think one of the reasons why it took me like 4 years or whatever it was to get this movie made was I feel like I spent the first 2 years after Animal Kingdom was released just working out what the hell my life even looked like, you know. I mean, I went from having no options other than the options that I generated for myself to having a whole lot that was being thrown at me, and I wanted to look at those things seriously. And it just took time. You know, it wasn't necessarily even about me sifting through specific projects. It was about me looking at different ways of working and, you know, just having a look at the studio system or having a look at what it would mean to direct somebody else's script or what it might mean to do some TV or, you know. And all of it had its appeals to me, and it still does, you know. I'm still but it became apparent to me that for a second movie, I really wanted to maintain some kind of control over what I was doing. I'm already feeling that now on this one, you know. It's like I'm on this one contending with a thing I've never had to contend with before, which is other people's expectations, you know. And I'm realizing that I can't control them, so I just have to let it go. And in a way, I feel like I just need to move through this. I saw this movie. I watched the Rover in Cannes. We finished it in November last year. So this was the first time I'd seen it in about 4 or 5 months, and I really enjoyed watching it, which is an unusual experience for me when I'm watching something that I've made.
How about the pressure when you were first going into it? Was there any pressure to adhere to even just the style that you achieved on Animal Kingdom?
No, I didn't feel any pressure to do that. I felt like it was, you know, I wanted to work in the same sort of tonal area as I had the first time, but I wanted it to be a different movie. I wanted, you know, and in a way, I think, you know, this is again possibly speaks to other people's expectations, but I kind of thought, you know, I don't want to try and do something that's big and sprawling and try and make like an even bigger Animal Kingdom as a second movie. I actually want to go the other way and do something that's a more intensely intimate story, much leaner and kind of simpler and more muscular, in a sort of vast empty landscape.
Where'd the idea for it come from? Did it start with like the characters, the environment, or maybe just that really simple story? Because like, when I walked out last night after experiencing the whole thing, I was thinking, I mean, really all it is a guy trying to get his car back. Like, that's it.
On the surface, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, on the surface.
Yeah, and there's something kind of liberating about being, you know, I remember before I'd made it and people asked me what I was doing, I said, what's it about? And I'd go, look, it's actually kind of like a really sort of dirty, violent, near-future Western about a guy who gets his car stolen and spends the entire movie trying to get it back, you know? Saying that facetiously, knowing that actually for me there's so much subtext bubbling underneath it. But it started because Joel Edgerton and I had been we were in LA in about 2007, and you know, I especially didn't really know why I was there. I hadn't even made any of the shorts that got some attention at that stage, I don't think. Anyway, we started just talking about a story that we thought maybe his brother Nash would direct, and you know, obviously it felt like Nash's wheelhouse is kind of action and that sort of visceral cinematic experience. Joel and I spent about 10 days nutting a story out. You know, at the sort of the loose skeleton of a story, and then I went away and wrote the first draft, and then very quickly started writing a kind of movie that I would want to make. which doesn't have a lot of car chases in it, and which is all more about, less about the kind of the visceral action of the experience and more about the kind of the tension and menace that surrounds moments and acts of violence.
As someone who isn't inclined to write car chases, how is it shooting something like that? Is that the toughest thing to wrap your brain around here?
It's just painful because it's kind of, you have to wrap your brain around it. It involves like careful and rigorous preparation and stuff. But we did that, and Nash, I did some previs with Nash. But it's just painful because, it's just slow. It's just, shooting it is, that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to write a movie full of car chases, because I didn't want to shoot them. And I didn't even necessarily, I don't want to watch them either. But, when you're shooting a movie, on any given day, maybe you're getting, I don't know, anywhere between sort of 12 and 18 setups every day, 12 or 18 shots, and then when you're doing a car chase, you're down to 4 if you're lucky.
How much coverage are you getting for like one-on-one sequences? Because I imagine you need a ton if you're going to spend the money to shoot a car chase. But then on the other hand, with your with one-on-one conversations, you let it just like sit in one shot. Is that what you're doing on set, or are you getting more just in case?
In a car chase, you're doing,
car chase versus a conversation scene.
Well, in a car chase, you're doing, as is the one that the Rover begins with, you choreograph it. It becomes its own little story. It has its own story beats. By the time you've been shooting that for however many days we shot that car chase, by the time everyone is fully familiar with the various narrative story beats of the chase, and everyone involved could get in those cars and recreate the chase, because we'd been doing it up and down the road so many times. But it always feels like you're kind of trying to paint with a shovel, because you're in actors are giving performances, but I'm in a tracking vehicle screaming at them into a walkie-talkie, and it's just. I love being in a room with a couple of actors who are performing in beautiful, fine detail, and that's the stuff. They're the car chases for me. They're the fun stuff. They're why I go to the movies.
How about the gore? Because there's a lot of killing in this movie. I think every single person.
It's a lot of killing, but there's not a lot of gore. When you
I can think of a few really cool-looking shots.
I don't know I can't remember how many people
I'm
die in the movie.
trying not to spoil anything.
Most of them happen off camera, weirdly. But there are a couple.
Was there ever any concern about just kind of like killing at that rapid fire pace? Because I love horror and a good amount of carnage, death, and gore and all that. But is there ever any fear of like turning people off by just kind of pop, pop, pop?
No, I don't worry about it, because I know that my sensibilities don't rarely venture into the world of just sort of gratuitous blood and guts for blood and guts' sake. I find violence to be an incredibly powerful, dramatic tool. But what fascinates me most is what immediately precedes and follows an act of violence. The act itself should usually be something that is, a fleeting experience. And so for that reason, I always find quite often that when I watch movies where there is, like really overtly gratuitous gore involved in a particular representation of an act of violence, that more often than not it detracts from all of that stuff that fascinates me, which is the tension leading up to an act and the upheaval of its aftermath. So I never really think about, I just want to do what I feel is going to be the most effective way of executing the dramatic possibilities of the act.
It also says a lot about the characters, when they kill, who they kill, and how they react after, which is why I appreciated it here. But that's kind of like our version of exposition here. You never sit down and have a character, well, very rarely at least, just explain what they're doing, why they're doing it, and who they are. How is it working with your actors like that? Do you have some sort of backstory that you give them, or is it kind of, like, don't touch that and let it breathe through their performance?
No, I mean, I think actors, like anyone, like any head of department, they want to know as much as they can about the character. And you explore that. I like to explore that stuff. I don't like, it's not like I sit actors down and then explain to them what their character is. That stuff is all unpicked and revealed in conversations that we have about, in the abstract of, so I love, for instance, when I'm working with actors to when they're having costume fittings or makeup tests, for me to be there at those tests and fittings, because it's in those environments I find that we have the richest conversations about the character and backstory, and I want them to feel like that they are as fully furnished with information as they can be, because once you get into the fine detail, you're dealing with characters who aren't overly expositional, who are keeping things hidden, and you're playing with subtext that they can fill it with an almost intuitive detail that comes from knowing who they are and why they're there.
How was it working with your cast on this? I mean, I know you wrote the part with Guy in mind. It kind of puts a lot of pressure on you, though. Was there ever like, oh no, what if he doesn't do it or isn't available? Then how do we re-envision this role?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're forced to. I remember when we were trying to make the movie, I was looking at different ways of making, different scales in which to make it, that I was forced to entertain the idea of, what it would mean to have someone else playing that character. And it was, I didn't enjoy doing that. I wrote it for Guy, I had a very specific thing, and then I'd entertain another idea, and then I'd sit there for 2 weeks just imagining the movie with someone else doing it, and then go, nah, I mean, I knew Guy, I felt reasonably confident that, I felt reasonably confident that the Guy would want to, because I think we had a good experience on Animal Kingdom together. The great unknown was, Guy and I weren't really able to have really detailed conversations about the character until just a few days before we started shooting, because of his availability. And it became kind of quite surprisingly apparent to both of us that what we were contemplating in his character was a really, really pretty monstrous creature. It didn't necessarily reveal itself explicitly on the page. It's, he is a man of few words, but as soon as we started talking about him, it became quite clear that this guy was, a monster. And that monster needed to be found, unfortunately we found it quite quickly. I have such vivid memories of that first day of shooting with Guy. It was the first shot we did of him was one long steady cam shot behind him. So not only was he not talking, I couldn't even see his face, but I could see in the way he was holding himself that the character was there. It was spine tingling. It was just like, suddenly the movie comes alive at that point.
I was kind of wondering, he's got a limp to him. Did you come up with why he had that? Like, what kind of accident happened?
No, we don't. Actually, we never really talk about why he had a limp. But what we talked about a lot was that this was a man for whom all of whatever it was, this kind of emotional damage and baggage that he was carrying around, had manifested entirely in his kind of neck and shoulders. That this was a man who needed a really good massage.
Not getting it in that environment.
but as soon as I think it's useful to imagine those things when that a character can kind of spread out from something as simple as that. And I don't know, somehow that found its way in the guy's leg as well.
Now, how about working with Robert Pattinson? Because, like, on the one hand, it's great. You got this kid from Twilight, and it's gonna, probably open this movie up to an even wider audience than it's already going after. But at the same time, you kind of have to, like, detach him from that too, because, like, I don't like a lot of my friends and family even look at him, and it's like that and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole weird, complex, fascinating soup of stuff. It's like I still haven't seen the Twilight film, so I don't. But I'm very aware of like his position in the world of pop culture and gossip magazines and all that kind of stuff. And I met him, had a meeting with him. I just really liked him. He was clearly really obviously smart. He really wanted to do the movie, and that in itself was really important to me as well, because if we were going to be out in a really weird, challenging part of the world, I wanted to be there with someone who really wanted to be there. But when he came in and tested for me, it was just obvious to me instantly that he's a really good actor with a really rich understanding of the character. And then everything else is just an unknown. It's like, I go, yeah, I don't know whether or not we just automatically drag his audience into a movie like this, but the idea of it just excites me anyway. I love having the opportunity to take someone that people think they know and show that this whole other world of colours and flavours that, it's exciting, because I think he's really good in the movie.
To wrap up, because I have to know, can you tell me about putting the song "Don't Hate Me Because You're Beautiful," because I'm beautiful in the movie? Because, like, it could kind of inform, like, the year at the same time. Does it do that for you at all?
No, I think of it in terms of the time frame of the movie. For me, it's just like Rob sitting in a car listening to classic rock. It would be the equivalent of us sitting in a car listening to something from 1967. But it was just important to me at that point in the movie that you have a clear and sad reminder of the fact that Rob is a kid. His character is Ray is a kid, and that if circumstances had been different, he'd be rolling into the next town, hoping to meet a girl, and listening to music and doing whatever young adults do. But that's not the life he's living in this movie.